So there's a new game being played, and it's called Where Does the Middle of the Road Common or Garden Variety Left Wing Person Go Now That Hillary Has Stumbled? And the latest edition of this is rather humorous. It's that crazy old Uncle Joe Biden is the new savior for the middle of the road Democratic Party. But I think that's anything but the truth. If Hillary's received 2 years worth of ridiculous amounts of scrutiny from the crazy and the evil on the right, and they've come up with a number of issues. And the email, I guess, is the one that's probably going to stick around for the longest to make her dirty. But and whether or not Hillary Clinton really has any problem in her email, or whether there was anything to do with Benghazi, which involved ineptitude at any level of our government, that has nothing to do with anything. The problem with Hillary is that she's just not a representative of the left in any way, shape, or form. She's voted for every war that's come along. She's championed all of these causes. I'm sure the first thing she'll start doing if she becomes president is start looking for some Arabian moderates to arm and train for ISIS's next chapter, which they will add on, because we're not going to get over there and do anything, nor should we. Everything we've done over there has been a mistake so far. There hasn't been a good blow laid in the Middle East since Lawrence of Arabia went over and took a bunch of nomadic herding tribes and mold them into an engine that England could use against the Turks. This is our first case of moderates that we found and gave weapons to. And the Middle East has nothing but a long history of meddling by the West and all of its problems that it's created, ISIS just being the latest one. Meanwhile, back to Hillary Clinton, she's wounded, and now the middle of the road left are looking for somebody. And obviously they're thinking that it can't be Bernie Sanders, because Bernie Sanders uses the word socialist in his own description of himself, and that's tantamount to political suicide. But here we are in 2015, and things are different. Perhaps we're willing to entertain the idea that socialism isn't a form of evil. In fact, it's a form of good. And really what socialism means is that we still have capitalism. It's just not unregulated, smokestack, devil take the hindmost version of capitalism that the current mega yacht bunch of people that are buying and selling politicians as their afternoon tea goes on are used to having. We need to find another way to restrict capitalism such that the downsides of capitalism, like pollution, environmental degradation, global warming, death of all life on the planet, these things are mitigated in some significant way. And PDQ, i.e. the clock is ticking, and it's ticking quite quickly now. And whether you're willing to admit it or not, the effects are now raining down, or not, as it might be the case here in California, around us. So back to Bernie. What is wrong with Bernie? Well, here's a guy that's been around since the 70s. He's held on to the same core philosophy for 40 years. Now, think of anybody else you can describe that way. And, there's enough editions of Joe Biden out there to write a whole comic book line about. You could write, crazy old Uncle Joe or young firebrand Uncle Joe. There's a whole bunch of Joe Bidens that we've seen throughout the years, and they're all pretty militaristic. They're all pretty mainstream in terms of capitalism and any regulation thereof being bad. I don't think we're going to get any kind of movement toward the left from a person who's as compromised as Joe Biden on just about every aspect of the modern world. So Joe's not it, folks. Come on. I read the Chronicle this morning. I'm Joe Biden. Give me a break. Sorry, Joe. I love you dearly, but you're not the guy. And, Hillary's not the girl. We'd love to have a girl, but there isn't one right now. I'm not voting for Hillary Clinton. She's a militaristic individual. She doesn't believe in regulation of capitalism. She plans to raise $2 billion to run a campaign. Now, if you raise $2 billion, come election day, there's going to be some folks looking for payback. $2 billion does not come for free. Hello? Anyone living in the modern world thinks that perhaps you can raise $2 billion from rich financiers and then go about trying to prune the way that they do business in the modern world? That seems unlikely. You need a person who has core principles, who has an integrated philosophy, whose actions spring from the core beliefs that they hold inside themselves, and they've demonstrated this for some period of time. Now, that we have that in Bernie Sanders. We don't have that in anyone else. Hello, sir. So glad to see you. Glad you're here. So, there's one guy who's got a demonstrated track record of demanding change at every level, because if you are really on the left wing and not just a minion of this so-called center left, sorry, lie down please, then you realize that we're not getting anything, right? The so-called middle of the road people are never going to move us one way or the other, and it's going to be bullied along by the people with money and power. The trick of the whole game is going to be how to get control over the people that have money and power. Not control over them, we just need to limit exactly what they're capable of doing with their money. And buying an election shouldn't be one of those things. Now, you shouldn't be able to buy an election. I mean, face it, folks, if you don't watch those political commercials, then all that money that they spend on them is wasted. And that's a good thing, because political commercials are no way that people should be forming opinions about who they're going to elect. Right? You need to do a little bit of a deeper analysis. And, unfortunately, in a lot of cases, that just isn't happening these days. People are taking these sound bites and gotcha moments, and they're forming an opinion about somebody based on stuff that really has very little to do with how they will behave if you actually elect them to the highest office in the land. What do we know about what Hillary Clinton will do if she's elected the highest office in the land? Well, I don't see any scaling back of Middle East entanglements and idiotic wars. I don't see that coming from Hillary Clinton. She seems to believe, ever since she voted for George Bush's war in Iraq, that Middle East, we need to do more over there. I'm coming from the side that says we need to do less, a lot less over there. In fact, pretty much everything we've done since killing Mossadegh in Iran and setting off the whole revolution that led to the Ayatollah and all these death to America chanters, we started that. The good old boys down at the CIA decided that the duly elected president of a civilian-led government in Iran was bad. And why was he bad? Oh, because he didn't like the amount of control that the oil companies had over his sovereign nation, or what he thought was his sovereign nation. So we sorted him out in a big hurry. We killed him, and then we brought back the hated Shah of Iran. And when people went to the streets to protest that, the Shah had the soldiers come out and machine gun them. So, we're not looking, we don't have any high ground in Iran, that's for sure. When we complain about Iranian fanatics, we really don't have a leg to stand on, folks. We shot and killed their elected civilian government. They had a government that wasn't religious. We are the ones who started the chain reaction, which led to the religious government, which they now suffer under. And Iranians are smart people. They're wonderful people. I worked with them quite a bit when I was in Canada, because Canada is more open to Iranian immigration, because they don't have this whole fear about Iran. So the Iranian people are very smart. They're not happy about the way things are, but hardliners, religious hardliners, once they take control, they're difficult to displace, and we led to that. So, back to Hillary. I don't see her admitting these mistakes and being willing to move on. Bernie Sanders is willing to admit these. Bernie Sanders comes from a completely different perspective. He's been on that same perspective for over 40 years. Listen to the man. He talks sense. Everybody else is talking about how they're going to take baby steps and somehow get us somewhere. Now, folks, we need big steps now. The time for baby steps is rapidly coming to an end. I'm not saying that we need to throw away what we have, but we do need to make significant changes about the way that people with money control the public discourse. You know, we can't stop Rupert Murdoch from his noise that he makes. And, you know, unfortunately, those dog whistles are heard by a significant portion of our population now. And that's kind of a scary thing. We can't stop that. We want a free press. We want freedom of association. We want the freedom to be who you are and elect who you want. But anybody who thinks that everything is going fine and we just need to tweak it a little bit, I think should think just a little bit harder and realize that we need someone who actually has our interests. And by our interests, I mean the broad majority of American people. If you think anybody on the Republican side has the broad majority of American people's interests at heart, look at what their platform is in terms of regulating the effects of money in politics. There's no such platform. There's nobody espousing any such things. I mean, every once in a while, Rand Paul says something which I agree with, which scares me half to death. But, you know, I'm not saying which one of us is the blind pig, but they find an apple sometimes, right? I mean, he's right. ISIS is driving around in $2 billion worth of U.S. military hardware, and any more of it we put over there is just feeding that fire. And Rand Paul's right on that. There's a whole lot of other stuff that he's not right on, and according to me. So I'm looking for somebody who's willing to understand the militaristic aspects, how to scale that back, the control of society aspects by the rich, the gated community aspect to world politics, right? We don't want to act like jerks and then build a wall around our borders so no one can get at us now that we're acting like jerks and using up more of the world's resources than we have a right to do. We should be leading the world into a new era of relaxed usage of fossil fuels and relaxed pollution of the environment and better homogenization of society to where the difference between the top and the bottom isn't so vast and so many people aren't completely written out of the equation. And you know, that for that kind of change, it's got to be significant. Uncle Fluffy Joe Biden ain't going to get you that. Aunt Hillary, not going to cut it. I'm sorry, Hillary's tied up, and even if she wasn't, I don't see the core philosophy there. It's going to bring us out of where we're at. So, vote for Bernie. See ya.